Alright guys, that's Cammy again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. OpTic have finally responded to what's going on with the process, when it might be arriving, what the progress of the process currently is, whether the fans that are talking about the hype dying down or everything's over are fair or justified or not. Some roster drama going on elsewhere as well. Some talk about Mercules, especially as the breakthrough player of the year. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Plenty to get into today. Just wanted to start here because the Halo World Championship is coming up rather shortly. It's next weekend, not this upcoming weekend. It's a big deal because it could be potentially Formal's last ever competitive tournament. Don't want to put it out there, but it is possible at the very least, given what's happening in Halo and the players like Legends going to COD and all that type of stuff. There also is a tournament coming up tomorrow. Now, Kaysun did say that he was going to run a couple of tournaments during, well, this period, basically. Now, look, it is what it is because Black Ops 6 is the only game, and we've played a lot of Black Ops 6 over the last year or so, but it's still great to see. So, Kaysun's going to run his 2v2 Showdown LAN. This is going to be at TwitchCon San Diego. These are the players involved. So there's going to be some duos, as we've seen before, FaZe, Thieves, OpTic, and then the Falcons Warzone team. Interesting on the Falcons side, just because we know that Shifty, not Hisoka, but Shifty says he's playing in challenges this year with Blast, right? That was what they said, that it was going to be Shifty and Blast team of two, looking for two in challenges. Of course, these other guys not in challenges, but it is the Scrap HyDra duo that did rather well, as we know when these tournaments have happened before. Simp and Drazah still as the duo there from FaZe, despite the fact that everyone else is gone. And then Shotzzy and Mercules. So, yeah, effectively like an AR SMG duo kind of thing from all sides. That's coming up tomorrow. So looking forward to seeing how that one goes down. Look, it's not a massive 4v4 tournament. It's not a throwback to Black Ops 3 or something, but it's still going to be a good watch, I think, and great to see. So that's going on. There's also, as of yesterday, the Esports Awards announcement, and I actually got nominated for this again, which I do massively appreciate, because I got nominated last year, and to be nominated back-to-back is really pretty humbling. But these are the Content Creator of the Year and all the other esports awards relevant for Call of Duty anyway. So, yeah, Zuma got nominated as well, which is great to see, because I know that Zuma, like, he absolutely deserves to be on this list. And over the last, I think last year he was like, damn, I got snubbed for some reason. So I think it's great to see that Zuma got nominated as well. And I don't think I'd be nominated if I just did COD. It's because I do the Valorant stuff as well that they, you know, put me on the list. It's really nice. But anyway, these are the names. We're certainly not the favourite here, right, by any means, right? Like, a lot of these guys, Odin Pixel, all the massive content creators that do the watch parties and stuff like that, lots of those guys are on here, among many other great content creators as well. So that was cool to see. There's also a few other things. So yeah, Zuma says, chat, that we finally make it. You can vote if you want, but I don't know how much difference it's going to make. But, you know, I would appreciate it, I guess. These are all of the representatives from the COD side. I think when Jake had initially looked at it, I wasn't on there. So, like, you can, I think he mentioned in the replies, there was a couple of changes. TacticalRab was added to content creator, OpTic Texas to team, and Shane removed from coach. So kind of interesting. Looks like a bit of a mess yesterday. But these are all the relevant nominations. COD usually does quite well in this as kind of the premier controller esports, if you want to look at it that way. I know that back in the day, the voting panel, the voting committee had quite a few representatives that at least used to be relatively close to competitive Call of Duty. But we've got quite a few nominations regardless. So, mobile game, COD Mobile, right? Which is maybe better than what we've played in the CDL for the last few years anyway. For personality, as always, there's some top names up here. Nadeshot's involved, Scump, Gataga, MS Dostry as well, he's involved with the Falcons. Still kind of like adjacent to Call of Duty, but, you know, Nade, Scump, Gataga, understandable. Content group, Gentlemate and Heretics. Less specific to COD, but still relevant. We mentioned content creator. Breakthrough player, Mercules is in there. And we'll discuss what Zuma had to say on that in a second, because there are some other candidates for sure for Breakthrough Player of the Year in other esports. And, like, I'm not so familiar with the other esports to say 100%. But Mercules, it's going to be pretty tough to beat, you would think. The other ones I'm familiar with, at least from Valorant, I think Kayak and Brook both got nominated. Both players who did pretty well this year. Kayak, they didn't win anything. Brook did end up winning the World Championship. But did he do a Mercules, completely turning around the most popular team in the game and winning the two back-to-back biggest tournaments, right? Like, it's tough. In terms of breakthrough players, it's tough to have a better breakthrough season than that. And there's been Call of Duty players, I think, that have won this in the past with lesser accomplishments. So that's that. Team of the Year. This is not Organisation of the Year. That's different. So Org of the Year, Falcons, G2, OpTic Gaming nominated. Team of the Year is actually the specific quartet or quintet or whatever. So LA Thieves were initially nominated. Then OpTic Texas got nominated as well. Like, obviously, right? Because if LA Thieves, yeah, they were the #1 team of the season in the CDL standings, but OpTic Texas had a better year. Nobody's going to deny that. Mercules is even up for Controller Player of the Year. So kind of interesting that, well, it was, I suppose, difficult who else to nominate, really. You can't nominate too many Call of Duty players. Scrap, HyDra, Shotzzy, Simp. You could nominate a ton of COD players. But instead, they've nominated Scrap and Mercules. So, again, that's pretty interesting. I mean, Mercules could maybe win the double, but, you know, we'll see about that. As I say, Coach, maybe Shane isn't there anymore. Play-by-play caster Miles got nominated. Chance got nominated for color caster. I think we're very lucky in the competitive COD world at the quality of casters that we have, and those two guys are no exception. And then, well, the same applies for the host as well in Mr. Chris Puckett. So anyway, those are the nominations that we have. They'll be announced, I think it's November sometime when everything closes. And yeah, Zuma was kind of talking about this is the list of the players who have been nominated for Breakthrough Player of the Year. And as I say, I'm not familiar with all of these guys, so maybe there's someone else who's outdone Mercules. But it seems pretty difficult to imagine that Mercules could be beaten here. But we'll see what time says on that. And tweet your thoughts on all that stuff in the comments below, especially when Zuma goes on to say that, you know, is Mercules just the best ever pickup that OpTic have ever made? ReeaL did a post here on the Reddit, and he was like, is he just the best pickup ever? Now, in terms of like all time, you probably got to say Scump, right? Because they picked up Scump, the rest is history, I guess. So when you're talking about like a very holistic approach. But in terms of a player to have turned around a season, it's difficult to imagine anyone will do what Mercules did. Frankly, ever again, it would be quite remarkable to think about. Now, let's talk about what's going on with the process to break this whole story down, right? Because as Roger mentions in this clip that I'm going to share, initially the talk was it was going to be OpTic Day, right, back in August. And then it was like, okay, well, it'll come September sometime. Then that never really happens. And there's not really been much update on it. And like at the end of the day, it was not going to arrive during the beta, right? So early October was off the cards really anyway. Maybe it makes sense to drop it around about when the new game is starting to come out to try and build some of the hype up again for the new CDL season. It's definitely possible. And look, people are still going to be excited about it. People are still going to watch it. I think at the moment, because there's been a big delay, people are like, well, you know, where is it? Has the hype to some degree died down? I think, to be honest, for the OpTic side, if it was ready quite quickly after the World Cup, the hype was still there. While Rostermania was really in full swing, 2-3 weeks after the World Cup would have probably been like absolutely ideal if they could have got it done in that time frame. If not, I don't think it massively matters. I think it's okay to leave it a little bit longer. I do understand, you know, tons of replies here to Hex's tweets, people that are basically saying that, you know, people don't care anymore. They've missed the hype train on it. Hype's gone now, mate. Couldn't care less and all this stuff. But as JP says in a tweet, a couple of tweets on, I think it was this one, you know, over or under 99% of the people that say, oh, the hype is dead, they're still going to watch it anyway, right? So, you know, maybe classic COD fans saying, oh, I'm not going to buy the game this year, and then they get it anyway. But this is what Hex and Roger have to say about what's going on with the process, kind of why it's been delayed a little bit.
The moment we've all been waiting for, the answers that we've all been seeking, the grasping for the proverbial air that we need, the air by the name of process.
What's up? What's up?
You tell us. You tell us.
It's coming, man. This project is kind of like a once-in-a-lifetime movie,
yeah,
and it deserves the attention it gets.
Okay.
But I will say some of this is a little self-inflicted. I shouldn't have told you the dates that I was aiming for, and then
he's talking to you guys here.
And then we should have never. No, I'm talking to you.
To me?
Yeah. I shouldn't have never told you because you went on watch party right after we won EWC. You said OpTic Day.
That's what you said, but that's what you
I
said.
know, but I told you that as like an internal thing.
I told you that in confidence.
And then I was naive enough.
Wait, huh?
To
What I should let him get back to work so he can. You're right. You're right. You're right. Roger, we're sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, dude. We'll let you get back to it. Did you know that Joey doesn't...
So I'm sure that Roger wants this to be absolutely perfect as far as he is concerned, right? Because understandably, this should be the crowning achievement maybe for him, but also in terms of documentaries from OpTic's perspective, this kind of should be the best they've ever done, right? Like, that would be the goal, because what they achieved in the season was one of the most remarkable stories in esports history for sure. They want to do that justice, and I'm sure that Roger's probably trawling over what he's put together and thinking, I could tweak that, I could tweak that, and want to make it absolutely perfect. I totally understand that, and as I say, I think when it's been this long since EWC and Champs anyway, it probably doesn't really matter giving it another couple of weeks regardless. So, okay, again, we don't have a date. As Roger says, it would have been better if we never gave a date in the first place and it was like, it'll be done when it's ready. But yeah, I understand the perspective of the organization. I also understand the perspective of the fans as well, right? So intrigued to your thoughts on that in the comments below. The other thing I wanted to mention was a little bit about some Rostermania stuff. There were a couple of funny clips here that Shotzzy found entertaining. This was Mercules winning a game of Among Us. And I mean, look at this guy. Like, this is OpTic's new superstar for the coming years. But there were some Rostermania questions as well, especially what's going to happen over the coming months, potentially years. So today, actually, in the Valorant world, the Ascension tournament is underway. Effectively, Ascension in Valorant is, if you're a tier 2 team, you can actually qualify for the Pro League on like a rolling basis. You get to keep your spot if you're good enough, effectively. You get to qualify through Ascension. One team makes it up every year. Now, Envy are in Ascension. A couple of their players, though, actually aren't 18, so if they do win, they'll have to swap those players out. They won't be able to play in the Pro League. But because Valorant is sensible on this regard, 16-year-olds can actually play in challenges. So, whereas in COD, it's not the case. Whatever, I'm not going to get into it again. But Hastro says this: who are the newcomers to look out for in COD? Tell me why. Going to watch some of these guys. I might stream again tonight, watch some YouTube VOD on however you guys recommend. So, Hastro wants some names. He wants some names of some challenger players that could maybe do another Mercules, right? He wants to watch some VOD. And then he gets asked, all right, challengers, Envy challengers, is it coming back? And he says, all right, hold your horses, but if we do ascend from VCT from challengers, so if they win Ascension in a few days' time, which they're probably the favourites to do, I'd say their chances of doing it are lower than 50%. There's some good competition there, but, you know, if they do win, then he says, I will 100% try and show off in COD challengers. Just know that. So Hastro's made it pretty clear. He does want to get back into COD, but he wants to do so in a sensible way. Getting a CDL team right now is off the table. Maybe if expansion happens, it's possible. Envy are no longer like massively venture capital funded as many of the organizations used to be and still are in many ways. They're partnered with Native Gaming, so a lot of their money is coming internally, right? So they've got to be careful about the way that they go about their business. But Hastro makes it pretty clear that, yeah, Envy CODs probably will be a thing again at some point. The question is when, and also the question is whether the players that he might be interested in at some point could also be targets for the Ravens, just because there were a few questions on what should Ravens do. If they are getting Slasher and Craze, what do you do, right? Do you pick up Illy? Do you pick up TJ Halley? Do you pick up Donny Temp? Do you get, you know, I mean, I'm just looking at some of the replies here. Johnny, Standy, Geo, Nero, etc., etc. All these other options who have done pretty well. Or do you go in a totally different direction? You pick up some challenger guys nobody's ever really heard of. Maybe, maybe not. I don't think that Slasher, just knowing how Slasher tends to operate, would be so keen to have a team of him and effectively 3 rookies to the league. As much as Slasher probably wasn't happy that TJ Halley at the end of last season took the Falcons offer, and as a result of that blew up the Ravens to such an extent they couldn't even attend the World Cup because of the rules, and I'm sure that Slasher wasn't happy with TJ doing that as a result of the consequences. But also, if Slasher had the offer from Falcons, he probably would have done a similar thing, let's be honest. So I wouldn't be surprised, anyway, if TJ ends up back here. And I don't think that would necessarily be a bad decision. But I could see Slasher wanting to play with someone that he has some experience with before. Could it be Tej? Is he versatile enough? Yeah. You know, are people going to look at a team of Slasher, Tej, Craze +1 and be like, well, you know, what's that really going to do? Probably yes, but at this point, when you're the final team to build your roster because you've got no money, it is what it is. So very much interested to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Just another final thing. I don't know how Crim is pulling off these, but he's at it again. So this weekend, actually, it makes sense because it's the US Grand Prix in Austin, Texas. So I guess Crim is local and he's got the connections. But Aston Martin have got a special livery, and here he is, just looking like James Bond in his jacket here, next to the Aston Martin car, and then they let him get in it. Can you believe it? Very jealous. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.